Hey there, folks! Welcome back to Best of Ask Reddit Special. Tonight, we're diving into the spookiest tales from r/ghost stories. These chilling stories, whispered by anonymous voices, blur the line between reality and the unknown. We're here to explore these mysterious stories together. Picture it like uncovering secrets in a dark online corner. Get ready because in these stories, the world of the living and the dead meet. I'm your guide, and we're in for a haunting journey. Let's get spooked together. My nurse was a ghost. In 2020, at the beginning of COVID, I had just given birth. At this time, I could only have one other person in the room with me my entire stay at the hospital. Of course, my kid's father was there. But like the third day, he left to clean up our house and get everything prepared for me and baby. I had gotten sick and had a C-section, so I had to stay for about 4 to 5 days. Well, while he was away, a nurse named Kelly said she would be helping me throughout the day and spending time with me so I don't feel lonely while Dad is gone. I couldn't really hold my baby due to me being sick and the pain from the C-section, so my nurses would come in every time it was time to feed. I noticed when they came in they wouldn't acknowledge Kelly, and she would go to the farthest part of the room, and she would tell me, "I'm just going to get out of the way." Now she did tell me that she didn't specialize in what they did, she was just for comfort. So I didn't question anything. The entire day she was so helpful and encouraging to me. I really believe I would have broken down and she wasn't in there with me. She was such a sweetheart. Well, after about 5 or 6 hours, she told me she had to leave and that she would come visit me before her shift was over to see how I was doing. She hugged me and blew a kiss at my baby and walked out of the room. Later that night, Dad came back and he was very upset. He had told me some stuff happened with his mom and that he was sorry he took so long. I was upset, but I told him a nurse named Kelly kept me company. As I'm telling him about her, my nurse is changing my sheets, and she's like, "Who is Kelly?" I explained, and she said that nobody named Kelly was in my room or working that day. So I instantly thought about those women who would pretend to be nurses and kidnap children. But my nurse told me that I may be hallucinating, and she told my doctor. I talked to my doctor, and he said the same thing. Well, a couple of hours later, a nurse that I didn't recognize came in my room and said, "I know this might sound crazy, but everyone on the floor is talking about you seeing Kelly." I said, "Yeah, she was here with me for like 7 hours today. She helped out a lot." We're smiling and laughing while I was telling her about Kelly and how sweet and funny she was. Then she pulled up her phone and showed me pictures of her and Kelly that looked like to be maybe early 2000s. I was smiling knowing that I wasn't hallucinating. Then she sat down and told me Kelly died over 10 years ago from domestic violence with her boyfriend. I wasn't too shocked because my entire life I've been dealing with paranormal. But I had chills because I never had an encounter this deep. Well, the lady gave me a hug and started crying, saying now I know that she is okay. Since that day, I've been wondering, why did Kelly come in my room and help me? I kinda wish I could see her again. My husband was there at his grave. My husband died by suicide in June. This put me in a tailspin, which I'm only kind of recovering from. To give some context, I have faced depression and suicidal ideation before he passed and have been on medication for it for about 3-ish years. He knew how to calm anxiety attacks and he was part of my emergency plan. For about 2 weeks after he passed, I knew he was there. I would talk to him like I did in life and it helped me carry on. I guess I should say that I felt he was there, but either way these out loud conversations helped. Then after a while, mid-July maybe, he wasn't there anymore. This hurt. But it's part of the healing process. Or maybe he had moved on. Either way, I stopped talking out loud because I felt no one was there. But I still do it when I visit his grave. It helps me feel better. The grave is still unmarked, which bothers me, but I try to leave fresh flowers and scatter the petals of the dead ones I left on the prior visit. It's something. He is buried in a very small cemetery. Cornfields to the east and north. The lawn is not maintained, which I love because it's not artificial. He is in nature, or as close to nature as one can be with the cemetery requirements. I was visiting him, just talking, late last month or early this month. I told him that things weren't going good. I wanted to die, and work was stressing me out. I stood there in silence for a moment or two. I didn't want to leave him on a bad note when I felt it. The air, it just stopped. It was like I was in my own atmosphere. A bubble. Nebraska is always windy, and I couldn't hear the corn rustle. I couldn't hear the wind chimes we have marking his grave. My breath caught in the sense that I forgot to breathe because of something amazing. Not fear or panic, but like awe. Then I got gooseflesh and started to tear up. It was him. He was there with me in my silence. I rambled out a teary, "Oh, hi. Okay, you're here. Oh." There's no way to explain this, but I knew he was sorry for making me cry, so I reassured him that it was only because he snuck up on me. Then my emotions swung the other way, and I started to laugh. That happy cry laugh that people do. I told him I was sorry for waking him up because it must have taken a lot to come be with me, and that I wasn't mad, just that I missed him. And no, he just snuck up on me. It's okay. And no, I wasn't going to win at all. I was just really down. But he was here and I was okay. I would be okay. I heard the corn rustling again and he was, I don't know, fading, so I told him to go back to sleep, that I loved him and was so happy to feel him again, but he needed to go back to sleep. I left the cemetery on a high note, still chuckling like an idiot. I was very skeptical of ghosts and spirits before this, and still am for the most part, but that moment in the cemetery was different. He hasn't done it since, and I'm not going to push it because I do think it wore him out. It was just so nice. Also, I don't believe in the religious ideas of heaven or hell, but more the idea of peace. Rest. I just wanted to share this to see if anyone else has had something similar and maybe explain it better. Devil in the ICU. My mom used to work night shift at a hospital before she retired. Years ago, she had a terrifying experience that she recently told me about. During one of her shifts, she had an elderly patient that was in the ICU getting ready to pass. Oftentimes, my mom would sit and visit with her patients during her downtime. The woman was crying, so my mom held her hand and asked what was wrong. While still crying, the woman said that he was here for her. She said that he was evil when he was alive, and he's still just as evil now. Confused, my mom asked if the lady was talking about her husband. The woman told my mother her dead husband made her life a living hell and now, on her deathbed, had been in her room for days, tormenting her. He told her he was here to take her. She said he had been standing in the corner of the room since she was admitted into the ICU. My mother offered to pray with the woman, which she accepted. The woman eventually passed, but had told my mother before she went that she no longer saw her husband, and she was able to go in peace. The time I saw my dad talking to a ghost or entity. This happened when I was about 15 in a little town called St. Helens, just outside of Portland, Oregon. At the time, our family was really going through some tough obstacles. My dad had been acting very strange, talking to himself and not acting as he normally did for a couple days. His personality would change quite often. At the time, he was not diagnosed with schizophrenia. We were trying to get him help. Leading up to the night I had seen this thing conversing with my dad, I had also experienced very strange dreams, and it felt like I had been sat on by someone very heavy. I looked and no one was there. My brother had seen something he called the garbage man on numerous occasions. He said it looked like a bag was over his head and was being sucked into his mouth and eye sockets. It leaned over him and appeared to be very tall. This thing visited him a few times. It was about 2 a.m., and I heard my dad talking to someone or himself. At this point, I had a routine of going and talking with him to calm him. My bedroom had been right next to the kitchen and the bathroom because it was a small house. I walk into the kitchen, which had been lightly lit by the outside lights. First thing I see is the very tall shadow figure in the doorway of the bathroom, and my dad standing toe-to-toe with this massive thing. He's mumbling something, then he says loudly, "Leave me alone." I'm terrified, so I ran right back into my bedroom. My dad's mental state took a turn. It was a struggle for my family to get him help. Eventually, things escalated, and my dad was considered a danger to himself and others and was able to get the help he deserved. They did not find drugs in his system and eventually diagnosed him with schizophrenia. I don't know why we saw this thing or what it was. I think it was preying on my dad's weakness. Can people with this mental illness see past the curtains? Since this day, that question runs through my head a lot. The most haunting paranormal experience of my life. Before I go into this story, I want to preface that everything I'm telling you is 100% no bullshit. This happened to me in my early teens. I'm 21 now. My best friend growing up had this huge farmhouse in the middle of Virginia. It was very old and beautiful, but also had a very dark history. In the house, there is a tunnel that leads to an underground room of sorts that was used for slaves to hide in 1800s. And I'm 90% sure that some died down there while in hiding. so you can imagine the history and energy that fills the house. I always felt scared there. I never felt alone and wouldn't go anywhere alone in the house, even just to grab something out of my room. Even the family was scared to stay there with no company because of the intense apparitions and experiences, which I can get into another day. The rooms were massive and the entire house was white with honestly creepy vintage decor. There was even a cabinet of freaking ventriloquist dolls upstairs. No joke. They were a really odd family, honestly, with lots of dark problems. Anyways, the second time I visited that house, I was with my mom, my best friend at the time, and her mom. It was a girls' trip. One night I woke up and was so thirsty, the last thing I wanted to do was go downstairs and get water. I was terrified. I hated that house at night, but my mom was dead asleep, so I literally sprinted downstairs with my head only looking at the floor. I made my water in 5 seconds, and when I made it to the stairs, something compelled me to look at the giant glass doors that were in front of the stairs. I was horrified but felt like I needed to look out the window. What I saw when I looked that window will haunt me for the rest of my life. I saw a man as real as anything I've ever seen. It was pitch black outside with a huge bright moon. The man was all black, like a silhouette, but because of the moon being so bright, I could clearly see his entire body. He was blacker than black, like he stood out so much I 100% thought he was a trespasser. He was wearing a top hat and was unhumanly tall. Like 7 feet. My heart literally felt like it stopped beating. I felt like I was in a trace. I was so unexplainably horrified, but I couldn't move away. He was moving a little bit, almost like breathing. Then about 10 seconds later, he was gone, disappearing into thin air. I panicked and bolted upstairs after I snapped out of my trance. I cried to my mom and was up all night. The next morning, I told my friend and her mom about the experience, and they were not shocked at all, as they had seen multiple full-body apparitions in the house themselves. The nanny that worked for them even refused to go into some rooms of the house. I never went back to that house again. And that's all the best ghost stories on Reddit. If you like more of this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your similar experience in the comment below. See you in the next video.